I used to think I was a good judge of people. But that was before I met the man next door. This was 2 years ago, when I moved into a small basement suite on the east side of town. It wasn't much, one bedroom, thin walls, creaky pipes, but it was cheap and close to work. The house next door was identical to mine, same build, same fence line, but something about it felt off. The blinds were always half closed. There was no car in the driveway, no lights ever, except for one in the upstairs window that glowed faintly, like a nightlight. I assumed no one lived there, until the third night. It was around 11 p.m. I was taking the trash out when I saw him, a man standing perfectly still at the fence line, staring at me. He looked to be in his 50s, wearing an old brown coat. I said, "Hey, sorry, didn't mean to startle you." He didn't answer. He just smiled and said, "It's okay. I live here." I nodded awkwardly and went back inside. But something about the way he said it bothered me. I live here. Not next door, not over there, just here.
Over the next few days, I kept seeing him. In the window at night, by the mailbox in the morning. Always watching. Never speaking. Once, I caught him standing behind the tree in my yard, half hidden, like he was waiting for something. When I stepped outside, he turned and walked straight back to his house without a word. That's when I decided to ask the landlord about him. I called that afternoon and said, "Hey, who lives in the house next door?" She paused, then said, "No one. That property's been vacant for months." I laughed. "No, there's a guy there. Older, gray coat. I've seen him several times." Another pause. Then she said, "That can't be right. The house doesn't even have power." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me flinch. Around midnight, I got up to close the blinds and froze. Through the gap, I could see his window. The light was on again, and he was standing there, staring out directly at me, like he'd been waiting for me to look. I pulled the blinds shut. A few minutes later, there was a knock at my door. Not loud, just polite. I didn't move. Another knock. Then his voice muffled through the wood. "You shouldn't tell them about me." I didn't answer. The knocking stopped. When I finally looked through the peephole, no one was there. The next day, I told the landlord again. She insisted the place was empty and said she'd come by to prove it. She arrived just before sunset. We walked over together. The porch boards were warped. The door had police tape residue on it, like it had been sealed off before. She unlocked the door, and we stepped inside. The air was cold and stale. There was nothing, no furniture, no boxes, no footprints in the dust. But upstairs, in the room with the light, we found a single chair facing the window, and beside it, an old brown coat folded neatly on the floor. The landlord looked shaken. She said she'd have the place resealed. That night, the house stayed dark. For the first time, I thought maybe it was over. But around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound, a whisper, right outside my window. I couldn't make out the words, so I got up and pulled the blinds back. The window across the fence was glowing again. The chair was empty, but on the inside of my own window, there was a fresh handprint. I moved out 2 days later, didn't even ask for my deposit. A few weeks after that, I drove past the street again. Both houses looked the same, quiet, empty. But as I slowed down, I saw the curtains in the upstairs window shift slightly, just enough for someone to look through. And even from the road, I could swear I saw a man's face watching me, smiling.
Sometimes I still dream about him standing there by the fence, just staring, waiting for me to come back. And every time I wake up, I check my window, just to make sure he's still on his side.